I sent my in-laws $1,500 every month so they could live comfortably after my father-in-law claimed he couldn't work due to back problems, and my wife Sarah begged me to help them avoid eviction. Last week, our baby was born premature and needed NICU care, costing us $8,000 out of pocket, so I asked them if they could return just 1 month's payment to help with the medical bills. My mother-in-law, Patricia, laughed. Not a polite chuckle or an uncomfortable deflection. A full theatrical laugh that echoed through the hospital waiting room, where I'd cornered them after they'd refused to visit their premature granddaughter. "Marcus, sweetie, that money's already spent," she said, examining her freshly manicured nails that probably cost $80. "Besides, we have our own expenses. You're a big boy with a good job. Figure it out." My father-in-law, Richard, nodded. His bad back apparently cured enough for him to stand there with his chest puffed out, arms crossed like I was the unreasonable one. I watched Sarah's face crumble behind them, her postpartum body still recovering, dark circles under her eyes from sleeping in NICU chairs, and something inside me went cold and sharp. I smiled, the kind of smile that made Patricia's laugh falter, and said, "You're absolutely right. I should handle my own responsibilities." I pulled out my phone and transferred another $1,500 into their account right there, watching Patricia's eyes light up with greedy satisfaction. What they didn't know was that I'd just activated the financial nuclear option. The next morning I sat in our cramped apartment, the one we'd been living in for 3 years because every spare dollar went to help family, and opened my laptop. Sarah was back at the hospital with our daughter Lily, who weighed barely 4 pounds and needed to gain weight before we could bring her home. My hands shook as I pulled up 18 months of bank statements, but not from grief. From rage that had crystallized into something useful. See, I'm an accountant. A forensic accountant specifically, for a mid-sized firm that handles fraud investigations. I know how to follow money trails. And for the past year and a half, I'd been documenting every dollar that left our account for Richard and Patricia, every excuse, every emergency that required immediate funds. But I'd also been doing something else, something I'd started 6 months ago when Sarah came home crying because her mother had screamed at her for only sending $1,400 instead of $1,500 during the month our car broke down. I'd hired a private investigator. Cost me $1,200 I'd scraped from doing weekend tax returns under the table, money Sarah didn't know about. The PI's report sat in my email, received 3 weeks before Lily was born. I'd been waiting for the right moment to open it, some part of me hoping I was wrong, that Sarah's parents were actually struggling despite the designer purses Patricia kept posting on Facebook. I clicked the attachment. Richard and Patricia owned their home outright, had for 15 years, inherited from Patricia's mother. No mortgage, no rent. The eviction notice Sarah had sobbed over 18 months ago? Fabricated. A Microsoft Word document Richard had created himself, complete with spelling errors and a fake attorney's letterhead. Richard's back problems? He worked construction under the table for his brother's company, 40 hours a week at $25 an hour. The PI had photos of him lifting lumber, operating machinery, laughing with co-workers. His disability claim had been denied twice because doctors couldn't find anything wrong with him. But here's where it got interesting. The $1,500 I sent monthly wasn't going to bills or food. It was going to their vacation fund. They'd taken 4 cruises in the past 18 months. 4. While Sarah and I ate rice and beans, and I picked up every overtime shift available. While we delayed trying for a baby because we couldn't afford it until the surprise pregnancy. While Sarah cried herself to sleep worrying her parents would be homeless. My vision went red around the edges as I scrolled through photos of Richard and Patricia on beaches, holding tropical drinks, living the retirement they'd convinced their daughter they couldn't have without her husband's charity. There was more. Patricia had credit cards, 3 of them, maxed out on jewelry, clothes, and daily Starbucks runs. Richard had a boat. A goddamn boat parked at his brother's property, registered under the brother's name to hide it. They had savings accounts totaling $43,000. I sat back in my chair, that cold clarity settling deeper. They'd stolen from us. Stolen from their own daughter. Stolen from their granddaughter's medical fund with their lies. And yesterday, when I'd begged them for help while their grandchild fought for her life in an incubator, Patricia had laughed. I opened a new document and began typing. Sarah kept meticulous records because her parents had trained her to. They wanted proof of every payment, every sacrifice she made for them. She had 18 months of texts where they'd guilt-tripped her, manipulated her, threatened to cut her off if we didn't send money. She had the fake eviction notice saved in her email, the one she'd shown me with trembling hands that convinced me to drain our emergency fund for their deposit on a new place they never actually needed. My phone buzzed. "Sarah, Lily's oxygen levels are better. They think maybe another week and we can bring her home. I love you. We'll get through this." I stared at that message. My wife, my partner, exhausted and scared, telling me we'd survive while her parents planned their next cruise on our dime. I texted back, "I love you too. We will. I promise." Then I kept typing. By noon, I had everything organized. Bank statements, the PI report, screenshots of Patricia's Facebook posts showing off purchases and trips, records of Richard's under-the-table employment, copies of his denied disability claims, the fake eviction notice, and a timeline that showed how the dates of their emergencies perfectly aligned with cruise bookings and expensive purchases. I packaged it all into a neat folder on my desktop labeled Family Support Documentation. Then I called my buddy Derek, who practiced family law. "I need to know something," I said. "If someone commits fraud to obtain money from a family member, what are the legal options?" Derek was quiet for a moment. "You talking about your in-laws?" Word got around. Maybe. "Marcus, if you can prove intentional fraud, fake documents, false pretenses, systematic deception, that's not a civil matter anymore. That's criminal. Wire fraud, potentially. Depends on amounts and intent. Hypothetically, 18 months of $1,500 a month obtained through fabricated eviction notices and false claims of disability." Derek whistled. $27,000 obtained through fraud? That's felony territory. Why? "Just curious," I said. "How's the baby?" "Fighting, like her dad." I hung up and opened my email. The first message went to Richard's employer, his legitimate employer, the one he'd claimed disability through years ago, but still technically worked for on paper while doing cash jobs on the side. I attached the PI's photos of him doing construction work, dated and time-stamped. Subject line, Disability Fraud Report. The second email went to the IRS. Richard wasn't reporting his under-the-table income. The PI had documented approximately $52,000 in unreported income over 18 months. I attached everything, including witness statements from his co-workers the PI had interviewed. The third email went to the Social Security Administration. Richard was collecting early Social Security benefits based on his claimed inability to work. The photos of him lifting lumber would be interesting to them, but I wasn't done. I created a new Facebook account, anonymous, and joined the community group for Richard and Patricia's neighborhood. I posted the photos of their cruises alongside a simple message. "Anyone know why the Thorntons are collecting charity from their daughter while taking luxury vacations? Their granddaughter is in NICU, and they refuse to help with medical bills." I included screenshots of Patricia's public posts bragging about their trips, carefully cropped to remove anything that could identify me. Within an hour, 17 comments. Within 3 hours, the post had been shared 43 times. Their church group saw it. Their neighbors saw it. Patricia's book club saw it. The small town where everyone knows everyone saw Richard and Patricia Thornton for exactly what they were. Then I did something that hurt, but had to be done. I logged into our bank account and stopped the automatic transfer I'd set up 18 months ago. Then I changed our account password and security questions. Patricia would try to access it. She'd convinced Sarah to give her the login just in case of emergencies. Not anymore. My phone rang. Patricia. I let it go to voicemail. She called 4 more times. Then Richard called. Then Sarah's aunt. Then Patricia again. I silenced my phone and went to the hospital. When I walked into the NICU, Sarah was holding Lily for the first time, skin-to-skin contact, tears streaming down her face. Our daughter, tiny and perfect and fighting, wrapped against her mother's chest. "Marcus," Sarah whispered. "Look at her. She's so strong." I kissed my wife's forehead and looked at my daughter, at her miniature fingers curling and uncurling, at the monitors showing her heartbeat steady and sure. "She gets it from her mother," I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Patricia again. Let her call. Let her panic. Let her wonder why the money stopped. Why people were staring at her in the grocery store. Why Richard's boss was leaving urgent messages. The game had changed. They'd laughed at me while my daughter fought for her life. Now they'd learn what it cost to steal from a forensic accountant who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Sarah's phone started ringing an hour later while she was still doing skin-to-skin with Lily. I saw her mother's name flash on the screen and reached over to silence it. "Let me handle the calls today," I said softly. "You just focus on our girl." Sarah nodded, exhausted, her attention completely on our daughter. She had no idea what I'd set in motion. She didn't know that 3 hours ago I'd sent documentation to 5 different government agencies. She didn't know her parents' comfortable lie was currently imploding. The NICU nurse, Amanda, came by to check Lily's vitals. "Her oxygen saturation is holding steady at 94%, she said with a genuine smile. "That's exactly what we want to see. If she maintains this for another 48 hours, we can start talking about homecoming plans." Sarah's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen since before the emergency C-section. "Really? We can bring her home?" Amanda squeezed her shoulder. "Your little warrior is doing everything right. The next week is critical, but I'm optimistic." After Amanda left, I checked my silenced phone. 23 missed calls, 15 from Patricia, 6 from Richard, 2 from Sarah's Aunt Linda, 12 text messages, each one more frantic than the last. Patricia started with, "Why isn't the money in our account?" and escalated to, "Call me now," typed in all caps. Richard's were shorter, angrier. "What the hell did you do?" I deleted them all without responding. My email pinged. The IRS had sent an automated confirmation that they'd received my report and assigned it a case number. Processing time: 4 to 6 weeks for initial investigation, but flags for substantial unreported income could trigger expedited review. Richard's $52,000 in cash payments would definitely qualify as substantial. The Social Security Administration's response came next. "Your report has been forwarded to our Office of the Inspector General for investigation into potential benefits fraud." That investigation would be faster. They didn't mess around when someone was actively collecting benefits while working. Sarah shifted Lily carefully, preparing to put her back in the incubator. "My mom keeps calling," she said quietly. "I saw. I figured she probably heard about Lily being in NICU and wanted updates." The lie tasted bitter, but necessary. Sarah didn't need additional stress while our daughter was still critical. "I should call her back. Later," I said. "Right now, you need to rest. You've been here for 16 hours straight. Let me take the next shift while you go home and sleep in an actual bed." Sarah hesitated, looking at Lily's tiny form in the incubator, then at me. The dark circles under her eyes had darkened to bruises. She'd barely eaten. "You'll call me if anything changes? Anything at all?" "The second anything happens, you'll be the first to know. I promise." She finally agreed, kissing Lily's incubator before gathering her things. I walked her to her car, made sure she left, then returned to the NICU. Alone with my daughter, I pulled up the Facebook post I'd made. It had been shared 214 times. The comments section had exploded into a wildfire of small-town judgment. I always wondered how they afforded those trips on Richard's disability. Patricia showed me pictures from their Bahamas cruise last month, said it was from Richard's settlement money. Meanwhile, their daughter drives a 15-year-old car. Makes sense now. Someone should report them. This is disgusting. Already reported. My cousin works for Social Security. Says they're investigating. One comment made me pause. It was from someone named Jennifer Caldwell, posted 30 minutes ago. "I'm the office manager at Thornton Construction, Richard's brother's company. I just received photos of Richard working our sites. Federal investigators contacted us 20 minutes ago about payroll records. I've been instructed to preserve all documentation. This is serious." My chest tightened. That was faster than I'd expected. Federal investigators meant the disability fraud had triggered immediate action. Richard wasn't just losing his under-the-table income, he was potentially facing criminal charges. My phone rang. Patricia again. This time I answered. "Marcus, finally!" Her voice was shrill, panicked. "What the hell is going on? Why didn't the money transfer? And people are saying horrible things about us online. There's some post with our pictures." "Patricia." My voice was cold, level. "I'm at the hospital with my daughter, your granddaughter, who you refused to help yesterday." Silence. Then, "That's what this is about? You're punishing us because we couldn't give you money? We told you, Marcus. We have our own." "You have $43,000 in savings accounts," I interrupted. "You own your home outright. Richard makes $25 an hour working construction for his brother, 40 hours a week, under the table. You've taken 4 cruises in 18 months on the money I sent you. The money you said you needed to avoid eviction from a rental property you don't actually live in." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. "How did you—" "I'm a forensic accountant, Patricia. I investigate fraud for a living. What did you think would happen?" Her panic shifted to anger. "You investigated us? Your own family? What kind of sick—" "The kind whose daughter is fighting for her life while her grandmother laughs about not helping with medical bills. The kind who's been working 70-hour weeks to support people who've been lying to him for 18 months. Sarah will never forgive you for this. Sarah doesn't know yet. But she will. And she'll know everything. The fake eviction notice, the hidden boat, the cruises, the fact that you've been stealing from your daughter while she cried herself to sleep, worried about you being homeless." Patricia's voice turned venomous. "You can't prove any of that. It's our word against yours." "Actually, I can prove all of it. I have bank records, investigator reports, photos, your social media posts, witness statements, and the fake eviction notice you created in Microsoft Word. I've already sent everything to the IRS, Social Security Administration, and Richard's employer. Federal investigators are already contacting Thornton Construction." I heard Richard shouting in the background. "You bastard! You'll destroy us!" "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourselves. I just documented it. Don't call Sarah. Don't come to this hospital. Stay away from my family. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Lily made a small sound in her incubator, and I pressed my palm against the warm plastic, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. "Your dad's got you," I whispered. "Nobody's going to hurt your mom again, I promise." Amanda returned to check the monitors. "You doing okay, Dad?" "Yeah," I said. "Just protecting my family." She gave me a curious look, but didn't press. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Just heard from a buddy at the DA's office. They're looking at a fraud case involving your in-laws. Wire fraud, disability fraud, tax evasion. Could be federal charges. You know anything about that?" I typed back, "Just protecting my daughter's future." That's what I figured. For what it's worth, they deserve whatever's coming. I pocketed my phone and settled into the chair beside Lily's incubator. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Inside this small room, my daughter breathed and fought and lived. And somewhere across town, Richard and Patricia Thornton were beginning to understand that stealing from the wrong person had consequences. My phone buzzed one more time. Sarah. Home. Exhausted. "I love you both so much." I smiled and texted back, "Love you too. Rest. Tomorrow's going to be a better day." For us, anyway. For Richard and Patricia, tomorrow was going to be the beginning of the end they'd built for themselves. One lie at a time. I just helped it along. Sarah slept for 14 hours straight. I stayed at the hospital with Lily, watching monitors, talking to nurses, and ignoring the continued barrage of calls from her parents. By morning, the Facebook post had gone regional, shared over 800 times, picked up by a local news blogger who ran with the headline, "Local couple accused of exploiting daughter while granddaughter fights for life." The article was careful, using words like alleged and reportedly, but included screenshots of Patricia's cruise photos next to a stock image of a NICU incubator. The damage was already done. Amanda came in during her morning shift with actual news that mattered. "Lily gained 2 ounces overnight," she said, checking the feeding tube. "Her lungs are showing significant improvement. If this trajectory continues, we're looking at 5 days, maybe a week before discharge." My throat tightened. She's really going to be okay. She's a fighter. Marcus. Takes after her parents, I'd say. If only she knew. Sarah arrived at 9, showered and slightly more rested, carrying coffee and breakfast sandwiches. "You look exhausted," she said, kissing my cheek. "Did you sleep at all?" "Couple hours in the chair. I'm fine." I handed her the good news Amanda had given me. Her face transformed, tears immediately flowing. 2 ounces. That's huge for her size. "Oh my God, Marcus, she's really coming home soon." We held each other beside our daughter's incubator, and for a few minutes, everything else faded away. Then Sarah's phone rang. Her mother. Again. Sarah pulled away, frowning at the screen. "She's called 30 times. Something must be wrong." "Don't answer it here," I said quickly. "Let's not bring that energy into Lily's space. Call her back from the waiting room if you want." Sarah nodded, stepping out. I followed at a distance, staying close enough to intervene if needed. I heard Sarah's voice, initially concerned. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you—" Then silence. Long, horrible silence. "What do you mean, federal investigators?" Sarah's voice rose. "What are you talking about?" I moved closer. Sarah's hand was pressed against her forehead, her face pale. "I don't understand. Dad's disability. He can't work. That's why we've been helping you." More silence. Then, "What do you mean there's no rental property?" My stomach dropped. They'd told her, trying to get ahead of the story, paint themselves as victims before the truth buried them. "Mom, slow down. You're not making sense." "Marcus did what?" I stepped into view. Sarah saw me, her expression confused and hurt. "Did you hire someone to investigate my parents?" There was no point lying now. "Yes. Why would you—" Her voice cracked. "Marcus, they're my parents. They needed help. Sarah, there's something you need to know. Can we go somewhere private?" We found an empty consultation room. Sarah sat, still holding her phone, looking at me like she'd never seen me before. "My mom says you've been spying on them, that you sent false reports to the government trying to get them in trouble, that you posted lies about them online and now people are harassing them." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd compiled. "Before you hear their version, I need you to see the truth. All of it. And I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner, but I wanted to be sure." I showed her everything. The PI report first. Photos of Richard lifting lumber, operating machinery, working 40-hour weeks. Sarah's hand went to her mouth. "That can't be right. His back." "There's nothing wrong with his back. He's been working construction under the table for his brother's company, $25 an hour, cash, unreported." Next, the property records showing they owned their home outright. "The eviction notice?" Sarah whispered. I pulled it up on the screen. "Fake. Created in Microsoft Word. Look at the letterhead. The attorney's name is misspelled. The case number format is wrong. I had a lawyer verify it. This document was never filed with any court. Sarah was shaking. I showed her the bank records, their savings accounts totaling $43,000. The credit card statements showing luxury purchases. The boat registration under Richard's brother's name. The cruise bookings that aligned perfectly with our emergency payments. 18 months, I said quietly. $27,000. Sarah, they've been lying to you since before we got married. The PI traced it back further. Your dad's been doing this disability con for almost 5 years. Sarah stood abruptly, pacing the small room. This can't be real. My mother wouldn't. Your mother laughed when I asked her to return 1 month's payment so we could pay for Lily's NICU care. She said they had their own expenses and I needed to figure it out, while wearing an $80 manicure. Sarah stopped pacing, her face crumbling. She laughed? In the hospital waiting room, while our daughter was in an incubator fighting to breathe. The tears came then, not gentle crying, but deep, wrenching sobs. I held her while she broke, while 18 months of manipulation and guilt and stolen money crashed down on her. I've been sending them half our income, she choked out. We couldn't afford to try for a baby because I thought they'd be homeless. I've been eating rice and beans while they took cruises. They exploited your love for them. That's not your fault. How long have you known? 6 months since I hired the PI. 3 weeks since I got the full report. I was waiting for the right time to tell you, but then Lily came early and everything happened so fast. Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. What did you do, Marcus? My mom was screaming about federal charges and investigators. I explained it all. The reports to the IRS, Social Security, Richard's employer, the Facebook post that had gone viral, the documentation I'd preserved. Sarah listened in silence, her expression unreadable. You did all that without telling me. Would you have believed me if I'd just told you? Or would you have defended them, given them a chance to explain it away? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, I would have confronted them, given them a chance to lie to my face again. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. You're loyal and loving, and they weaponized that against you. Sarah's phone rang again. Patricia. This time Sarah answered on speaker. Mom, Sarah, thank God. You need to tell Marcus to stop this. He's ruining our lives over a misunderstanding. The investigators came to the house. They're freezing our accounts. Did you fake an eviction notice to get money from us? Silence. Sarah, that's not... It was a mistake, the landlord. You own your home. There is no landlord. Who told you that? Marcus is lying to turn you against us. I'm looking at property records right now, Mom. You've owned that house for 15 years. You inherited it from Grandma. Patricia's voice shifted, became pleading. Okay, fine, yes, but we still had expenses. We needed help. You took 4 cruises while we couldn't afford to fix our car. Dad's been working construction while collecting disability. You have $43,000 in savings. Sarah, please, you don't understand. I understand that you stole from your daughter, from your granddaughter. I understand that when my baby needed help, you laughed in my husband's face. Richard grabbed the phone. You ungrateful little... We raised you. We sacrificed everything for you. You sacrificed nothing. Sarah's voice was steel now, the grief hardening into fury. You used me. You manipulated me. You made me feel guilty for having a life while you lived off my money. If you don't fix this, you'll never see us again. Good, Sarah said, and hung up. We sat in silence. Sarah was still shaking, but something had shifted in her expression. What happens now? The IRS will audit them for tax evasion. Social Security will revoke Richard's benefits and likely prosecute for fraud. His employer will fire him and possibly sue for misrepresentation. Depending on what the investigators find, there could be criminal charges, wire fraud, disability fraud, possibly more. Will they go to jail? Maybe. Probably. The dollar amounts are high enough for felony charges. Sarah looked at me, her eyes red but clear. I should feel bad. They're my parents. But all I feel is angry. That's normal. I want them to hurt the way they hurt us, the way they hurt you. Does that make me terrible? No, I said firmly. It makes you human. They chose this, Sarah. Every lie, every manipulation, every dollar they took while you cried yourself to sleep, those were choices. You don't owe them forgiveness. What about Lily? She'll grow up without grandparents on my side. I took Sarah's hands. She'll grow up with parents who protect her, who teach her that love isn't conditional on money, who show her that actions have consequences. That's more important than grandparents who would exploit their own family. Sarah nodded slowly. We should get back to her. We returned to the NICU. Lily was awake, her tiny eyes open, looking around with the unfocused gaze of premature infants. Sarah reached into the incubator, letting Lily's miniature hand wrap around her finger. Hi, baby girl, she whispered. Your mama's got you. Nobody's ever going to use you like that. I promise. My phone buzzed. A message from Derek. DA's office officially opened investigation. Wire fraud, disability fraud, tax evasion. They're building a case. Your documentation was apparently airtight. I showed Sarah. She read it and nodded once. Decisive. Good. Let them face what they did. That night, Sarah slept in the hospital room while I went home to shower and grab fresh clothes. Our apartment felt different somehow. Lighter, like a weight I hadn't realized we were carrying had lifted. I checked our bank account. Without the $1,500 monthly drain, we had breathing room. Actual savings. The ability to pay Lily's medical bills without destroying ourselves. I thought about Richard and Patricia, probably sitting in their paid-off house, watching their comfortable lives collapse around them. I thought about the fear they must be feeling, the panic as investigators circled closer. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, no sympathy. They'd made their choices. Now they'd live with the consequences. I packed a bag for Sarah, grabbed the baby blanket her Aunt Linda had made, and headed back to the hospital. To my family. To the people worth protecting. The people who were about to come through this stronger. Together, free. The federal investigators arrived at Richard and Patricia's house on day 4 of Lily's NICU stay. I know because Sarah's Aunt Linda called, frantic and confused, saying 2 agents with badges had shown up with a warrant. "They're taking boxes of files," Linda said, her voice tight. "Financial records, computer, everything. Patricia's crying, Richard's yelling about lawyers. Sarah, what's happening?" Sarah, holding Lily during another skin-to-skin session, said calmly, "They're getting what they deserve." Then she hung up. Amanda walked in during the commotion, took one look at Sarah's face and said, "Family drama? You could say that. Want my advice? Whatever it is, keep it outside these walls. This little one needs her mama's calm energy." Sarah nodded, refocusing on Lily. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw clenched. The betrayal was still raw, still bleeding. My phone lit up with a text from Derek. Federal prosecutor assigned. They found evidence of systematic fraud dating back 6 years, not 18 months. Multiple victims, not just you. Your in-laws ran this scam on Patricia's sister 3 years ago. She paid them $30,000 before she figured it out and cut contact. Never reported it out of shame. She's talking to investigators now. I read the message twice. 6 years. Multiple victims. Patricia's own sister. Marcus? Sarah was watching me. "What is it?" I showed her the text. She read it silently, her face going pale, then flushed with rage. "Aunt Carol. That's why we never see her anymore. Mom said they had a falling out over something petty. It wasn't petty. Your mom and dad scammed her out of $30,000. Jesus Christ." Sarah's voice cracked. "How many people did they do this to?" "Sounds like we're going to find out." Lily squirmed against Sarah's chest, making small noises. The monitor showed her oxygen levels steady, heart rate perfect, life continuing despite everything imploding around us. "She's getting stronger every day," Amanda observed, checking the readings. "At this rate, we're looking at discharge by Wednesday. You two should start preparing. Preemie babies need special care at home. We'll do some training sessions on feeding, monitoring, all of it." Wednesday, 5 days away. Our daughter, coming home to a life her grandparents had nearly stolen from her. That afternoon, while Sarah napped in the recliner and I held Lily, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, keeping my voice low. "Marcus Ashford? Mr. Ashford, this is Agent Victoria Chen from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. I'm calling regarding the complaint you filed about Richard and Patricia Thornton." My heart rate kicked up. FBI, not just IRS or Social Security. "Yes? We'd like to meet with you tomorrow to go over your documentation. Your case has been merged with a larger investigation. The Thorntons appear to be part of what we call a family fraud ring, systematic exploitation of relatives using false pretenses. Your evidence is the most comprehensive we've seen. How many victims are we talking about?" "At least 7 we've identified so far. Total damages exceeding $200,000 over 6 years. Your father-in-law also appears to have been coaching other individuals on how to fake disability claims. We found manuals, templates, strategy documents on his computer." I felt sick. It wasn't just greed or laziness. Richard and Patricia had turned exploiting their own family into a business model. "What do you need from me?" "Everything you have. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. if possible. Federal building downtown. I'll be there." After I hung up, I sat holding my daughter, processing. $200,000. 7 victims. Coaching others. These weren't just bad parents. They were career criminals who specialized in weaponizing family bonds. Sarah woke up an hour later. I told her about the FBI call. She listened without interrupting, her expression hardening with each detail. "They taught other people how to do this? Apparently. I need to see my Aunt Carol." "Sarah? No, Marcus. She went through this alone. She probably thought she was the only one, that she was stupid for falling for it. She needs to know she wasn't alone, that they're facing consequences." I couldn't argue with that. We arranged for Linda to sit with Lily while we drove to Carol's house in the suburbs. She answered the door looking older than I remembered, her face haggard. When she saw Sarah, she started crying. "Oh, sweetheart, I heard about the baby. How is she?" "Getting stronger. We can bring her home Wednesday." Sarah paused. "Aunt Carol, I know what they did to you." Carol's face crumbled. "Patricia called you? Tried to turn you against me?" "No, the FBI told us. You were part of their investigation." Carol invited us in. Her living room was modest, clean, filled with photos of her kids and grandkids. "I gave them everything," she said quietly. "My savings, my retirement fund. $30,000 over 2 years. Patricia said Richard needed surgery for his back. That insurance wouldn't cover it. She showed me medical bills. I found out later they were fake, edited PDFs. When I finally got suspicious and stopped sending money, Patricia told the whole family I'd abandoned them in their time of need. Nobody believed me when I said they were lying." Sarah took her aunt's hands. "I believe you. Marcus found evidence of everything. They did the same thing to us. 27,000 over 18 months. Fake eviction notices, hidden income, the whole system." Carol sobbed. "I thought I was crazy. Patricia is my sister. Why would she do that?" "Because she could," I said. "Because you loved her, and she used it as a weapon." We stayed for an hour. Carol told us everything. The manipulation tactics, the guilt trips, the way Patricia would cry on command and Richard would send threatening messages if payments were late. She described the exact same playbook they'd used on us. When we left, Carol hugged Sarah tightly. "Thank you for believing me, for making them face this. They're going to pay for all of it," Sarah promised. "Every dollar, every lie, every person they hurt." The next day, I met with Agent Chen at the federal building. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, professional. I handed over everything. The PI report, bank statements, the fake eviction notice, documentation of 18 months of payments, screenshots, property records, tax information. She reviewed it methodically, occasionally making notes. "This is excellent work, Mr. Ashford. You're an accountant?" "Forensic accountant. I specialize in fraud investigations." She smiled grimly. "It shows. This level of documentation is going to make prosecution significantly easier." "What happens now?" "We finish the investigation, which should take another 2 to 3 weeks. Then the U.S. Attorney's Office will file charges. Wire fraud, mail fraud, disability fraud, tax evasion, identity theft. The list is substantial. We're looking at potential sentences of 10 to 20 years if convicted." "Good." Agent Chen studied me. "Most people feel conflicted about family members facing federal charges. You seem resolved. They stole from my daughter's future. They laughed when I asked for help while she fought for her life. I'm more than resolved. I'm determined to see this through." She nodded. "The U.S. Attorney will likely want you and your wife to testify at trial. We'll be there." When I got back to the hospital, Sarah was talking to Amanda about discharge procedures. Lily was out of the incubator, lying in Sarah's arms, breathing room air without assistance. No tubes, no monitors except the basic ones. Just our daughter, pink and small and alive. "Marcus, look!" Sarah's face was radiant. "She's breathing on her own, completely on her own." I sat beside them, touching Lily's impossibly soft cheek. "She's a fighter. Takes after her parents," Amanda said, echoing her earlier words. "Wednesday morning, barring any setbacks, you're taking this little warrior home." That night, Sarah and I sat in the NICU after visiting hours, special permission granted because of Lily's progress. We held hands, watching our daughter sleep peacefully in the bassinet. "Do you regret it?" Sarah asked quietly. "Reporting them? Starting all this?" "No. Do you?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I regret believing them for so long. I regret not seeing what they were, but reporting them, making them face consequences? No, I don't regret that at all. Your Aunt Carol thanked you today for believing her. She shouldn't have had to go through that alone." Sarah's voice was fierce. "Nobody should. If testifying against them means other people won't be victimized, then I'll stand up in court and tell the truth about every lie they ever told." My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Thornton's hired a lawyer. He contacted the DA trying to negotiate a plea. Apparently Patricia's offering to testify against Richard if they reduce her charges. Honor among thieves doesn't exist in their family." I showed Sarah. She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Of course she is. Mom always did look out for herself first. The prosecutor won't deal. They have too much evidence. Good. They should both face everything they did." Lily stirred in her bassinet, making small sleep sounds. Sarah reached over to adjust her blanket, her movements gentle and sure. "Wednesday," she whispered. "We bring her home to a life they don't get to touch. Ever. Ever," I agreed. Outside the NICU windows, the city sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Richard and Patricia Thornton were preparing for a battle they'd already lost. Their lawyer was probably explaining that federal prosecutors don't bluff, that the evidence was overwhelming, that their best option was to plead guilty and hope for leniency. I hoped they fought it. I hoped they took it to trial. Forced to sit in a courtroom while victim after victim testified about the damage they'd caused. I hoped they faced every single consequence of 6 years of systematic exploitation. Not for revenge, though that was part of it, but for every person they'd hurt who thought they were alone. For Carol, who'd been branded a liar by her own family. For Sarah, who'd cried herself to sleep thinking her parents would be homeless. For Lily, who would grow up knowing her parents protected her from predators, even when those predators wore familiar faces. Wednesday morning couldn't come fast enough. Wednesday arrived with late autumn sunshine cutting through the hospital windows. Sarah was already dressed and packed by 6 a.m., vibrating with nervous energy. "She's really coming home today," she kept saying, like speaking it aloud would make it more real. Lily had sailed through her final assessments, maintaining body temperature, feeding well from a bottle, breathing perfectly on her own. Amanda walked us through discharge instructions with the patience of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Premature babies need careful monitoring for the first few weeks," she explained, demonstrating how to check Lily's breathing, how to position her for sleep, when to call the pediatrician. "But she's strong, healthy, and ahead of schedule for her gestational age. You two have every reason to be optimistic." By 10 a.m., we were walking out of the NICU with our daughter secured in her car seat, a bag of medical supplies, and instructions for follow-up appointments. Sarah cried the entire elevator ride down, happy tears this time. Relief and joy mixing together as we stepped into the parking garage as a complete family. Our apartment looked different with Lily in it. The nursery we'd frantically assembled during the pregnancy, pale yellow walls, second-hand crib, mobile with stars Sarah's grandmother made, was finally occupied. Lily slept in her bassinet beside our bed, tiny chest rising and falling with perfect rhythm. Sarah couldn't stop watching her. Neither could I. "We did it," Sarah whispered that night, both of us exhausted but too wired to sleep. "She's here. She's home. She's ours." "She's ours," I echoed. And for a few days, we existed in that new parent bubble where nothing else mattered except feeding schedules and diaper changes and the miraculous fact of our daughter's existence. Then reality came crashing back. The FBI called on Friday. "Mr. Ashford, Agent Chen, the grand jury handed down indictments this morning. Richard and Patricia Thornton are being charged with wire fraud, mail fraud, disability fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Arrest warrants have been issued." My stomach tightened. "When?" "They'll be arrested within the next 24 hours. I wanted you to know before word spreads. The charges are public record now. Local media will probably pick up the story." I thanked her and hung up. Sarah was nursing Lily in the living room. I sat beside her and explained. She listened, her expression carefully neutral, then said, "Good. Let everyone know what they did." By Saturday afternoon, the local news had the story. "Local couple arrested for family fraud scheme," ran on 3 stations. The articles detailed the charges, the estimated damages, the multiple victims. They showed Richard and Patricia being led into the federal courthouse in handcuffs for arraignment. Patricia crying dramatically for the cameras, Richard's face stone hard and furious. Sarah's phone exploded with calls from relatives, some supportive, some angry, some confused. Linda called crying, "Sarah, honey, I don't understand. Your mother's saying she's innocent, that Marcus made all this up." "Marcus didn't make up 6 years of fraud and 7 victims, Aunt Linda. The FBI has evidence. Bank records, fake documents, witness testimony. Mom and Dad stole from their own family, systematically, for years. They stole from Aunt Carol. They stole from us while Lily was fighting for her life." Linda was silent. Then, "Carol? They really did that to Carol? $30,000 over 2 years. Oh my God," Linda's voice broke. "Patricia told everyone Carol abandoned them, that she was cruel for cutting them off when they needed help. We all believed her. That's what they do. They lie, manipulate, and turn people against anyone who questions them. Not anymore. Now everyone knows the truth." Over the next week, the story gained traction. The small-town scandal angle was irresistible to media. Respectable couple, church members, pillars of the community revealed as con artists who targeted their own relatives. Patricia and Richard's mugshots circulated on social media, comment sections filled with vitriol. Former friends and neighbors shared stories of suspicious behavior, requests for money, elaborate excuses. "Richard borrowed $5,000 from me 3 years ago, said he'd pay it back from his settlement. Never saw a dime." Patricia would show up at our church crying about being broke. Then I'd see her wearing new designer purses the next week. The community turned on them completely. Their church asked them not to return. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Someone spray-painted "thieves" on their driveway. The police investigated, but no arrests were made. Sarah watched it all unfold with grim satisfaction. Is it wrong that I'm glad? She asked one night. Lily asleep in her bassinet beside us. That I want them to hurt? No, I said. They destroyed trust, exploited love, and damaged people who cared about them. Public shame is part of the consequence. My whole life, I thought they were good people who'd fallen on hard times, that I owed them because they raised me. Sarah's voice was hollow. But they were planning to use me before I even graduated high school. I was just a mark to them, their own daughter. I held her while she cried, the grief finally breaking through the anger. Not grief for who Richard and Patricia were, but for who Sarah had believed them to be. The parents who loved her, who sacrificed for her, who deserved her loyalty. Those people had never existed. She'd been mourning ghosts. The preliminary hearing happened 2 weeks later. Derek attended and reported back. They pleaded not guilty. Their lawyers trying to claim entrapment, that Marcus manipulated them into taking money. It's desperate and won't work. The evidence predates your involvement by years, but they're fighting. How long until trial? 6 months, maybe 8. Federal cases move slowly, but the prosecutor's confident. Your documentation plus the other victim's testimony makes this case airtight. 6 months of waiting. 6 months of Richard and Patricia free on bail, probably telling anyone who'd listen that they were innocent victims of a vengeful son-in-law. But their pool of believers was shrinking daily. Carol went public with her story in a local newspaper op-ed titled, "My Sister the Con Artist." It was devastating, detailed, factual, emotionally raw. Patricia Thornton stole my retirement savings and then convinced my family I was a liar when I tried to expose her, Carol wrote. For 3 years, I've been ostracized at family gatherings, called bitter and jealous. Now the FBI has proven everything I said was true. How many others believed her lies? How many other victims are out there? 3 more victims came forward after the op-ed published. A cousin who'd paid $12,000 for a fake medical emergency. A former co-worker of Patricia's who'd lent $8,000 for a fictitious house repair. Richard's own brother, who'd been paying Richard's disabled claims on taxes while Richard worked under the table for his construction company. The brother was furious. He faced potential legal consequences for his role, even though Richard had lied to him too. He turned state's witness immediately, providing documentation of Richard's cash payments, work hours, and admissions that his back problems were exaggerated. The case grew stronger every day. The prosecutors added additional charges: identity theft for using fake names on disability claims, money laundering for moving cash through multiple accounts to hide it from taxes. The potential sentence increased. 25 years became 30, then 35. The prosecutor called me personally. "Mr. Ashford, I want you to know, we're not offering deals. The Thorntons had multiple chances to come clean, to plead guilty, to show remorse. They've shown none of that. We're taking this to trial and seeking maximum sentences." "Good," I said. "They deserve every year. The trial will be difficult. You and your wife will testify. They'll be in the courtroom watching you. Their defense attorney will cross-examine aggressively, try to make you look vindictive or biased. Let them try. I have 18 months of documentation and a 3-week-old daughter who nearly died while they laughed about keeping our money. I'll testify to every detail." Christmas came, Lily's first, though she was too young to understand. Sarah and I created our own traditions. Just the 3 of us in our small apartment, a tiny tree with lights Lily stared at in wonder. Linda visited, bringing gifts and apologies. "I should have questioned things earlier," she said, holding Lily gently. "There were signs I ignored because Patricia's my sister-in-law, because I wanted to believe the best." "You believe the truth now," Sarah said. "That's what matters." Carol came by too, her relationship with Sarah rebuilding after 3 years of forced distance. "You saved me," Carol told Sarah quietly. "I thought I was going crazy, that I'd imagined the whole thing. You standing up to them, refusing to let them rewrite history. That gave me my sanity back." Sarah cried then, holding her aunt. "I'm sorry I believed them over you. You didn't know." That's how good they were at lying. The trial date was set. June 15th, 6 months away. The prosecutor sent us a witness preparation schedule. We'll meet several times before trial to review testimony, prepare for cross-examination, ensure you're ready. This won't be easy, but it's necessary. I looked at Lily, sleeping in Sarah's arms, completely unaware of the storm her grandparents had created. She'd grow up knowing the truth, that some people, even family, will hurt you if given the chance. But she'd also know that her parents protected her, fought for her, refused to let predators win even when those predators shared her DNA. "We're ready," I told the prosecutor. "Whatever it takes." Richard and Patricia's lawyer made one last attempt at a plea deal in March. The prosecutor sent the offer to Derek, who forwarded it to me. Defendants will plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for 5 years imprisonment each and full restitution of documented damages. I called the prosecutor directly. "What happens if we reject this?" "We go to trial. If we win, they face 30+ years. And you'll win? With your evidence and testimony, absolutely. Then we reject it. They had 18 months to come clean, to show remorse, to stop stealing from their daughter. They laughed in my face instead. 5 years isn't justice. I was hoping you'd say that. The plea offer was rejected. Richard and Patricia would face trial, full charges, maximum exposure. Their lawyer apparently advised them to take the deal, but Patricia refused, convinced she could sway a jury with tears and Mother of the Year speeches. Richard backed her play, as he always did. They'd go down together, still lying, still manipulating, still believing they were smarter than everyone else. They were about to learn otherwise. June 15th was circled on our calendar in red marker. The day Richard and Patricia Thornton would face every single person they'd hurt, every lie they'd told, every dollar they'd stolen. The day their house of cards would collapse completely, publicly, permanently. I couldn't wait. The trial lasted 11 days. June in the federal courthouse meant stifling heat despite the air conditioning, tension thick enough to taste, and a gallery packed with journalists, victims, and curious locals who'd followed the scandal. Richard and Patricia sat at the defense table looking diminished, Richard's face haggard, Patricia's careful makeup unable to hide the hollows under her eyes. They never looked at us. Not when Sarah and I entered the courtroom with Carol and Linda. Not when we sat in the front row behind the prosecution. Not once during the entire proceeding. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Michelle Reeves, was methodical and ruthless. She walked the jury through 6 years of systematic fraud, victim by victim, dollar by dollar. Carol testified first, describing the fake medical bills, the guilt trips, the family ostracism. She cried on the stand. The jury watched Patricia's stone face and saw no remorse. Richard's brother testified next, providing documentation of cash payments, admitting he'd been deceived. My own brother lied to me for years, he said, voice shaking. Used my business to commit fraud and didn't care if I went down with him. The cousin who'd lost $12,000. The co-worker who'd lost $8,000. Each testimony built on the last, establishing pattern, motive, intent. By day 3, the jury looked at Richard and Patricia with visible disgust. On day 4, I testified. Reeves led me through our story chronologically. The initial request for help, the fake eviction notice, 18 months of payments, the hidden income and assets. I explained my investigation, the PI report, the moment I realized they'd been lying. And when you asked them to return 1 month's payment to help with your daughter's medical bills, what happened? My mother-in-law laughed. She said the money was spent and we should figure it out ourselves. I looked directly at Patricia then. She was staring at the table, but her jaw was clenched. My daughter was in NICU fighting for her life, and Patricia Thornton laughed about not helping. The courtroom was silent. On cross-examination, Patricia's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, a man who'd manufactured evidence to punish his in-laws over a personal dispute. It didn't work. I had documentation for everything. Bank records don't lie. Property records don't lie. Photos of Richard working construction don't lie. Mr. Ashford, isn't it true you held a grudge against the Thorntons because they didn't approve of your marriage to their daughter? No, they were at our wedding. They were friendly until they realized I was a reliable source of money. You hired a private investigator to spy on family members. That seems extreme. I hired an investigator to verify suspected fraud. As a forensic accountant, I recognize patterns of financial manipulation. The Thorntons displayed every indicator. You've essentially destroyed your wife's relationship with her parents. I leaned forward. No. Richard and Patricia Thornton destroyed that relationship when they decided to steal from their daughter for 18 months while lying about being in crisis. I simply documented their choices. The lawyer had nothing after that. Sarah testified on day 5. She was calm, articulate, devastating. She described growing up believing her parents struggled financially, the guilt they'd instilled, the emotional manipulation. My mother would call crying, saying they'd be evicted, homeless, starving. I'd panic and send money we couldn't afford because I thought I was saving them. She detailed the fake eviction notice, the discovery of their lies, the realization that every dollar had funded vacations while she and I ate rice and beans. How did you feel when you learned the truth? Reeves asked. Betrayed, used. Like I'd never actually had parents who loved me, just 2 people who saw me as an ATM machine. Patricia's lawyer tried the same tactics on Sarah. Ms. Ashford, isn't it possible you misunderstood your parents' situation? I was shown fake legal documents. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. Perhaps they were embarrassed about their financial troubles. They had $43,000 in savings and owned their home outright. There were no financial troubles. There was only greed. The defense rested without calling Richard or Patricia to testify, a tacit admission they'd be destroyed on cross-examination. Instead, their lawyer gave a closing argument about family misunderstandings and good people making poor choices under financial stress. It rang hollow against weeks of documented evidence. Reeves's closing was surgical. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, This case is about two people who turned family love into a weapon. Richard and Patricia Thornton systematically exploited their own relatives for 6 years, stealing over $200,000 through lies, fake documents, and emotional manipulation. When caught, they showed no remorse. When given chances to plead guilty and accept responsibility, they refused. They continued lying, continued manipulating, continued believing they were too clever to face consequences. She looked at Richard and Patricia. They were wrong. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the four women stood and delivered guilty verdicts on all 23 counts. Richard closed his eyes. Patricia sobbed dramatically, reaching for a tissue. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Margaret Holden, showed no sympathy. Sentencing is scheduled for August 1st. Defendants will remain free on bail until then. We walked out of the courthouse into summer sunshine. Camera crews rushed forward, but we kept moving, Sarah's hand in mine, Carol and Linda flanking us. Sarah released a prepared statement. Justice was served today. Our family can finally heal knowing the truth has been recognized and consequences delivered. We hope other victims of family fraud feel empowered to come forward. That was it. Short, dignified, final. At home, Lily was with a babysitter, oblivious to the day's events. She'd turned 6 months old the week before. Healthy, hitting milestones, thriving. When Sarah picked her up, Lily laughed, reaching for her mother's face. "We won, baby girl," Sarah whispered. "They can't hurt us anymore." August 1st arrived hot and humid. Sentencing day. The courtroom was packed again. Judge Holden reviewed pre-sentencing reports, victim impact statements, federal guidelines. Then she looked at Richard and Patricia. "I've presided over many fraud cases in my career. What distinguishes this case is the defendant's complete lack of remorse. You exploited family bonds, weaponized love, and damaged people who trusted you. When given opportunities to accept responsibility, you refused. When confronted with evidence, you lied. Even now, I see no genuine understanding of the harm you've caused." She paused. "Richard Thornton, you are sentenced to 28 years in federal prison followed by 5 years supervised release. Patricia Thornton, you are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison followed by 5 years supervised release. You will jointly pay restitution of $214,000 to your victims. You have 30 days to appeal. 28 years, 25 years. Richard would be 83 when released. Patricia would be 80. Their lives, effectively over. Patricia collapsed, wailing. Richard sat stone-faced, staring at nothing. Guards led them away in handcuffs. This time, they weren't walking back out. Outside, reporters asked for comments. I gave them nothing. Sarah released a brief statement. "The sentences reflect the severity of the crimes and the number of people hurt. We're grateful for justice and ready to move forward." That evening, we had dinner at home, just our small family. Lily in her high chair, attempting to eat mashed sweet potatoes and making a joyful mess. Sarah and I talked about mundane things, Lily's upcoming pediatrician appointment, whether we should repaint the living room, what to have for breakfast tomorrow, normal life, finally within reach. Later, after Lily was asleep, Sarah sat beside me on the couch. "Is it wrong that I don't feel bad? No, they'll die in prison. My parents will die in federal prison. They chose that. Every victim they created, every lie they told, every dollar they stole, those were choices. You didn't put them there. They did." Sarah nodded slowly. "I keep waiting to feel guilty or sad. But all I feel is free. That's because you are free. Free from their manipulation, their lies, their constant demands. Free to build a life without them draining it away. Lily will grow up without grandparents on my side. Lily will grow up knowing her parents protected her from people who would have used her the same way they used you. That's more valuable than grandparents who teach her that love is conditional on money." We sat in comfortable silence. Through the baby monitor, we could hear Lily's soft breathing, tiny snores, the sounds of a healthy child sleeping peacefully. The next day, I checked our bank account. Without the $1,500 monthly drain, we'd saved $11,000 since I'd stopped the transfers 9 months ago. We'd paid off Lily's medical bills. We had an emergency fund. We were discussing buying a house, something that would have been impossible while funding Richard and Patricia's cruise addiction. Sarah went back to work part-time, her employer accommodating and supportive. I continued at my firm, where my bosses had quietly praised the quality of evidence I'd compiled. Professional recognition without the details that would have been awkward. Life normalized. We attended Lily's first birthday party surrounded by friends, Linda, Carol, and Sarah's cousins who'd stood by us. No one mentioned Richard and Patricia. They'd become non-people, erased from our family narrative except as cautionary tales. 2 years after sentencing, Carol called. The restitution payments started coming through. Not much. They're working prison jobs, minimum wage, basically. But it's something. How much? $47. From my $30,000, that's what they could manage. Carol laughed, bitter but healing. Know what I did with it? Donated it to a nonprofit that helps fraud victims. Felt better than keeping it. Sarah did the same when our restitution payment arrived. $62 toward our $27,000. She donated it to the hospital's NICU in Lily's name. "Let something good come from all of it," she said. Richard and Patricia tried appealing twice. Both appeals were denied. They tried reaching out through intermediaries, Linda initially, until Sarah firmly told her aunt that no contact meant no contact. Ever. They wrote letters that Sarah burned without reading. They had nothing to say that she needed to hear. 5 years after the sentencing, we bought our house. 3 bedrooms, a yard, good school district. Lily started kindergarten, bright and curious and loved. She asked once about Sarah's parents. "Where are Mommy's mom and dad?" Sarah knelt down to Lily's level. "They're not in our lives, sweetie. Sometimes people make bad choices that hurt others, and we have to keep ourselves safe by staying away from them." "Like strangers?" "Sort of. But family can hurt you too, and that's okay to recognize and protect yourself from." "Oh, can we get ice cream?" Kids are resilient. Lily moved on without trauma, her life filled with people who actually loved her. Us, Linda, Carol, friends, teachers, community. 7 years later, I was promoted to senior forensic accountant. Sarah finished her degree and started teaching. Lily thrived in school, played soccer, collected rocks, dreamed of being a veterinarian. We were happy. Genuinely, completely happy, in a way that would have been impossible with Richard and Patricia still in our lives, still draining our resources and emotional energy. I occasionally thought about them, aging in federal facilities, working prison jobs, sleeping in cells, cut off from the family they'd exploited. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no regret, no sympathy. They'd earned their fate as surely as we'd earned our peace. One morning, Sarah and I sat on our porch while Lily played in the yard, supervising her collection of interesting leaves. "You ever regret it?" Sarah asked. "Reporting them? The trial? All of it? Never." "You? Not once." She smiled, watching our daughter. "We protected her. We protected us. That's all that matters." "That's all that matters," I agreed. Somewhere, Richard and Patricia Thornton were serving their time. Here, we were living ours, free, whole, unencumbered by the weight of their lies. They'd stolen 18 months of our peace and 27,000 of our money. We'd taken everything they had in return, their freedom, their reputation, their family, their future. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. And justice, delivered completely and without mercy to those who'd shown none themselves, felt exactly right.